Well, the 3-year-old division, males at least, continues to live up to expectations and more drama. The Haskell journalism running down Gosker and goal-oriented in another thrilling finish, whether it's been a domination by Sovereignty, wild finishes with less than ideal voyages for journalism. These races have continued to deliver. And maybe, just maybe, the Jim Dandy will deliver, or maybe Sovereignty will run away with it. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the biggest race of the meet thus far at Del Mar, the Grade 1 Bing Crosby, on Horse Sense next.
Welcome back to another episode of Horse Sense, and welcome if you're new. As always, I'm Bailey Armour, joined alongside professional milliner Scott Shapiro. A milliner's a hat maker for those of you at home. This week, diving... And to you, that might be a new word for some. I think I didn't learn that until I started working in horse racing and seeing like people that made fascinators and hats and stuff to go to the races. What the hell is a milliner? But now we know, and now you know, and we know that we have plenty of action from coast to coast this week. Del Mar and Saratoga finally running on the same Thursday to Sunday schedule. Of course, Saratoga also running on Wednesdays. And with that, promotions galore, as you can see along the bottom of your screen here this week. We've got a pretty full calendar to go along with the racing action. We'll talk about the Grade 2 Jim Dandy at Saratoga and the Grade 1 Bing Crosby out at Del Mar, like Scott mentioned so kindly in our cold open. But if you want to see the full list of promotions that we're running here on FirstBet and Xpressbet this week, make sure you check out the promos tab in the FirstBet app or the promo section of the Xpressbet desktop website. So many words to get through. Anyways, what kind of tournaments can we expect this week, Scott?
Yeah, the tournament schedule kind of heating up to an extent, but not, last week we had a lot starting then. We had the Fun in the Sun. We had the Haskell Challenge this week. The Fun in the Sun, of course, continues. Best of luck to everybody involved in that. And then in terms of something new, well, we're starting to look ahead to the big Santa Anita opening week qualifier. I think it's a opening week challenge, I'm sorry, and we're starting qualifiers for that. I think that's a $4,000 buy-in. So qualifiers will help plenty of people qualify and avoid that big chunk, which some people are more than willing to pay, but I would need to qualify, and I'm sure some of you do as well. So good luck doing that at expressbet.com/tournaments. Is that as simple as that, right?
Simple as that.
But people like me can just go to the website and click on the tournaments tab. But and then I have the spaces as well. Of course, continuing Shappy Hour, Saratoga Summers, and SHSS from SS. A lot of S's. We'll have David Levitch back on the Paddock Prince this week.
Nice.
Got Travis Stone lined up for Whitney week. We've got so that's next week. So we've got a solid lineup for sure, and looking forward to it. Well, like I mentioned, Bailey, on the introduction, that the Haskell delivered, and maybe more dramatic and closer than some thought. But Gosker and goal-oriented made it a little bit difficult for journalism. We made it a little bit difficult on himself as well. But once again, showing that tremendous late acceleration and winning a race that kind of looked like he was going to lose again to at least some extent. But now we move on to the Jim Dandy, and we've got the big boy himself, your boy, Sovereignty, back in action for the first time since that tremendous late kick in the Belmont over the good going. Interestingly, he hasn't raced over a fast main track since his last loss in the Florida Derby. Hopefully we'll get that. But, the race is intriguing. I still think that race shape and whatnot can only do so much, as we've seen with journalism in a couple of his races where it looked like the race shape was up against him. But you got Baeza back to try to beat him, shipping cross country for John Sheriffs. I assume he'll stay at Saratoga if things go well. Yeah. And then you've got Sandman back in action with the blinkers on. Griffin back in action. Mark Cassie. And, of course, a couple of newer shooters to the scene. You got Moplex off the Ohio Derby win. Looks like he might have things his way on the front end. And a horse with the exact opposite running style in Hill Road, who continues to really not get good setups, but we still don't know how good he really is. the question becomes, and we had that the same one of late, Bailey Armour, and that is, what do you do in terms of building tickets, whether you're, especially if you're on Sovereignty? And tell me that you're not on Sovereignty first before I assume that, because I'm on them, and I assume you're on them too.
I wish I could tell you different, but of course I am once again on Sovereignty. I think this is the longest that I have been this keen on a horse in recent memory. If you've watched any of our episodes from the start of this year, of course we've been talking about him through his Triple Crown run.
That's a humble brag right there.
No, not necessarily a humble brag. I see why it came off that way. I just mean interested not only from a gambling perspective, but from a horseman's and a fan's perspective as well. I mean, how often have we seen a horse of this caliber, this crop, especially between Sovereignty, Journalism, and Baeza? It's been really a real treat to watch them run and watch what they do best. Sovereignty is a horse that closes like a screen door in a thunderstorm. Almost nobody can beat him. And the horse that, do you like that one? Thank you.
Southern.
The only one that can beat him just got on a plane back to California and is going to stay out there. This is Bill Mott's backyard. He's won this race 4 times. It's been a minute since he has won it now. His last one was, 2017, 2018, something like that. But he's been historically using this race as a prep for the Travers, and I don't see this shaking out as any different.
That's the question, though, right? Let's talk about that real quick before we talk about the tickets. Please if you're looking to beat Sovereignty in this spot, you're looking for 2 reasons. Maybe the race shape, although to me, he kind of showed that he could be up closer last time if he needs to be, at least not way out of it like we kind of thought. But more so, this is clearly a prep. Bill Mott, a man that is clearly not worried with his top horses and Godolphin about winning these types of races. I mean, heck, they didn't even want to run in the second leg of the Triple Crown, tisk. But this is not the goal. Is there any chance when you're looking at a horse that's going to be 2-5, 1-5, that might be, worth consideration and worth taking a swing against?
The fact that this isn't like necessarily the goal, and maybe maybe they're not going to run in as hard in this
just
one.
Might not be trained as hard enough to the race more than anything.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And something, if it was a different horse, if it was a different good horse, that would probably give me some concern. Because it's this horse specifically, I don't think that it necessarily turns me off of it. But I'd be interested to hear your take and anyone else's on how confident are we if this isn't, this isn't the finish line here. This is just a workout on the way. How do we treat it in that respect with the odds?
It's not like I normally attack these kinds of races. I've just been of the opinion that Sovereignty and Journalism, and I have to say that at this point, I see people trying to make a case that Journalism, can beat them. I don't know how. I mean, it doesn't seem to me, there's a lot of cases to be made for that, whatever. But I think Sovereignty and Journalism are legit. They've been the best 3-year-olds I've seen in some time racing in these races. And then you have Baeza, who's kind of not as good as them, but he's better than everybody else.
So good, right?
Yeah. So I have not tried to overthink these races like I normally would, but normally I would think that way and maybe take a swing against. The only horse that I think worth betting, and I think a lot of people will take a swing against with Baeza, kind of seeing reasons he could move forward. He was keen last time and didn't get a great trip. But Mo Plex is the only thing that I don't think he's good enough. But if it's speed favoring and he sneaks away, that would, and he's going to be a big price, and he's 2 for 2 over the track. That's the only. But I couldn't get there. I just couldn't get there.
How do we feel about Sandman putting the blinkers back on, or the blinkers on for the first time?
I never like it. Sometimes I'm proven wrong. She Feels Pretty was the most recent example, but usually, the horse is going to be a good price. I don't love this idea of a late running Tappet that's kind of been mental. Well, not kind of. He's been mental throughout his career. I think his races he's won, he's been dressed up with good trips and setups. And now this blinkers feels real stabby. And if he is keen with them off the layoff, that feels like a disaster, not anything more.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. I haven't really seen anything from him that I've loved or that I've really been super keen on. I don't know that he can. I think they're trying, the correct avenues to put it all together. I just don't think that he can really do it in the way that some of these other horses can.
Well, then let's, we've talked a good amount about the race. I don't want to cut you off, but let's get a little bit into the your ticket thoughts, because that's kind of the focus.
Yeah, that's the whole reason we're here, right? Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point, but we're going doubles. We're going doubles from the big race to the next race, race 11. After the big one here is a turf race, a mile and 16th. And this is one that I am interested about your take on just briefly. This is a 10-horse field.
I wrote this race up.
Fantastic. This is a 10-horse field, and you have like 3 sets of coupled entries here in New York. If a horses in the race are trained by the same trainer, they've got a coupled entry. But this one is one that's got some also eligibles as the coupled entries and some main track only horses as the coupled entries. And being a little bit, less experienced than you, obviously, how would you look at a race like this that has coupled entries? Because the one that I really like and that I'm going to play my cold double to is the 1A, Just One More, an English Channel filly who obviously they historically love the turf. Started under Horacio De Paz in New York here, went to Clements barn. He's back in the De Paz barn. Very impressively last way out, but she beat her stablemate, who's her coupled entry here, the Night Jasmine, the number 1. It's also the name of my dad's favorite bar in Tallahassee. Just One More. Shout out to my dad. But you can kind of get, 2 horses for the price of 1 here, basically. How does that affect my double strategy?
Well, I mean, I think it doesn't impact things too much because first off, we this far out, it's tough for content makers, real first world problems here, but it's hard to speak to, at this far out until we see the scratches. But let's assume they're both in there. I think you're going to need to play the old cold double because this is a 6-to-1 shot, not a 15-to-1 shot. And remember, the one thing that I think we've been pointing out and that kind of sprung a light bulb up in your head to a bit was it's not always about when you hit taking away half your profits or part of your profits or whatever because you had more combinations. It's thinking about all the times you don't hit. It's horse racing. This isn't a game where you win, you hit more bets than you lose, even if you're the best player in the world. That's not the point. You're supposed to, there's plenty of opportunity when you have one big race a day, really. So, that's the one thought I would have, not to kind of double up anywhere. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the way you're attacking the race. Of the ones that have run on the turf, I thought though that the entry had plenty of chance. I just was going to take a swing in that race with the Will Walden runner. Will Walden wins a lot of races these days, 25% on the year. But more importantly, I thought, it's a negative to me that Chad Brown didn't run this horse on the turf at all as a 2-year-old when he had 3 chances. But the dam side is all turf or very turfy. The Damn Goodbye Broccoli, a New York bred that won 4 of 19. 3 of those on the turf for almost $200,000. And then there's another sibling that was even better. That is, let me see if I think I have it. Yeah, Lady Joan. People probably remember her.
That sounds familiar.
What's that?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, she was 6 for 18. She won a New York Stallion Stakes and hit the board and a few others.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she was a good New York bred. So I'm going to roll with the pedigree, the hot barn, the inside trip, but nothing anti your way. On how you're approaching. Just remember not to add another horse out of fear. I'm just going to throw one thought on how I'm going to play the race. I'm going to take a chance with 1 ticket, and it's going to be Sovereignty over Moplex. I'm going to play a 5-3 exactly.
Ooh, okay.
I think Baeza is way the horse to beat for second. I don't want to come across as otherwise, but it's a gambling game. We talk about the difference in price. That exact is going to pay nothing. Moplex, I don't think he's good enough, but if he gets loose on the lead, I think he maybe can definitely hold off the 2 late runners in Hill Road and Sandman. And, he'll have to try to hold off Baeza, who gets a new rider with Pratt out west with Hector Berrios shipping cross country. Well, the action will continue from like noon or 1 p.m. Eastern all the way through till 9:30 Eastern, where Del Mar has its biggest race of the meet thus far, the Grade 1. Bing Crosby, and tip of the cap here to David Jerkins. He's definitely the racing secretary. He might have a bigger title than that, so I don't mean to disrespect David, but he does a fantastic job out there in California getting these horses to ship in. You just don't see it all that often the rest of the year. But getting Crazy Mason in from New York, maybe not a world beater, but adds intrigue from off the pace. And then World Record, who attracts Flavian Pratt, who's here for 2 races, you'd have to think, instead of riding Baeza. Interesting. But the Rudolph Brissett Colt, son of Gunrunner, will make his first start outside of the hometown East Coast and Kentucky based tracks, if you will. I think he has a start at Ohio. But this is a good race, Bailey. I think the way I saw it was that, there should be an honest pace. I don't think it'll be cutthroat, but I'll send it to you because I think there is a bunch of different ways you can go in this race, even though there is, a little bit of star power to an extent.
Yeah, we've got some that we've seen before quite a few times, some that we haven't seen quite as much. The one that I landed on here in this one is the number 6, Roll On Big Joe, for Robert Hess and Julian Leparoux. And that's the one that I would like some help pointing out some cons, talking me off this horse, maybe really help me see what I'm not seeing in this one, because I'm not seeing a bunch. Of course, his pattern winning the Kelly's Landing last out and then shipping out here to the Bing Crosby reminds us of the one and only Meatball from last year, who did just exactly the same thing. Unfortunately,
Close the game Sugar for those out there.
Yeah, Close the Game Sugar. His government name Meatball, as his friends and fans know him and love him. Unfortunately, Close the Game Sugar did not win the Bing Crosby last year, but I think that this horse could have a pretty solid chance to do so. He's got really nice buyers coming into this one. Hasn't been off the board since September of last year. Will probably run into an early speed type duel with world record, like you mentioned, just one to his inside. But his 6 furlong times are as fast as some of the fastest horses in here. Clearly, there has to be something that I don't know, but what could it be? Please help.
Well, I don't know if there's anything you don't know. I think he's one of the horses to beat in this race. He's in good form. He rattled off a dominant win in the Palos Verdes, and you figured, okay, he's a grade 3 horse at Santa Anita. If he shipped across country, though, he would probably, to Kentucky in the spring, where, in my opinion, the best of the best compete for the most part. I wouldn't have presumed that he would run 3 good races. He didn't get the job done in a 3-horse race at Keeneland. So calling that a good race is probably unfair. But his 2 races at Churchill were very good. Now, those are obvious pros. He's 7 for 18. He likes to win races. If I'm looking for some cons, maybe 6 furlongs is a little bit, maybe the 6.5 has benefited him a little. That's a little bit of a different style race. And again, there's speed to his inside and outside. So can Julian Leparoux, who, he is not a speed rider in general, but when he does get horses on the lead, he tends to be good with them, evidenced by this one, and why Bob Hess Jr., who is based in California, all year long. So this horse kind of coming home. He's been a California-based horse for the most part. Mm-hmm. So my concern would be, will he get caught up in a battle? He's got Emgnick. I'm probably not saying that right.
How do you say that? I don't know.
Nick, I forget. I watched the replays early this morning. I can't remember what was said in the races. World record in Hijazi to his outside. So to me, the concern would be 6 furlong real rate. In California, they're a little more speed-centric races. The speed there is a little more dangerous and ridden more aggressively. Is that going to be Roll On Big Joe's demise? Because I don't sense Julian Leparoux is going to, really be all out, maybe compared to a couple of these others that don't want to get the jump. And maybe this horse can show that dimension where he sits, a few lengths off and wins, but that would be a potential knock to me.
How would you take his these optional claiming appearances, this allowance level stepping up to the grade 1? Would you see that as a big knock to him, or just kind of this is what was available and we picked our spots based on that?
Well, no, they're out of condition. They're out of conditions, right? I think, he has 7 wins. So this is you had to move back into stakes action. But those are good races in Kentucky. Now, the April 13th was in 3-horse race.
That was bad.
Those second level $175,000 optional claiming races in Kentucky are, they're not grade 1 races or close to that, but they're right below grade 3. And in many cases, you could, fit the horses in just fine. So, and I don't really think, this is a good field, but I don't know if anybody's necessarily proven they're just this dominant grade 1 animal right now. You got world record who, won the Amsterdam and was set, he hasn't won a grade 1. Hijazi's been a little, they fit here. It's a great race, but it's not as if it's, sovereignty versus journalism resumes in here. So I wouldn't worry about the class hike. I think it's time for him to take this shot.
As always, thank you so much for watching another episode of Horse Sense. I'm Bailey Armour and was joined alongside my fantastic co-host Scott Shapiro covering the Gin Dandy and the Bing Crosby at Del Mar this week. Make sure that you check out all of our promotions on Xpressbet and FirstBet. We've got really something for everybody this week, including a $5,000 hit and split at Del Mar on Bing Crosby Day. And tune in to Scott's Twitter at ScottShap34 on Saturday morning for another edition of Shappy Hour. His spaces with David Levitch, the Paddock Prince. Have a good week this week, guys, and good luck.